See, in today's class, we'll be covering up the introduction to Terraform,
Okay.
especially why we require Terraform. What do we achieve by writing Terraform code?
Okay.
Right? When you want to create any resource in cloud, right? You go to the AWS console or any Azure console or Google Cloud console. You go there and then create resources.
Correct.
You leave the company and then the other person joins the company. How do you know that what resources you created, what kind of configuration you have done? There is no way you can trace back, right?
Correct. He needs to go one by one.
You did first, what exactly you did next, what exactly you removed, what exactly you modified. It is very, very difficult, even for you itself. Say after a month, if I ask you, okay, what resources have you created? What was the version you created? Which date you created? All of those things, it is very difficult to remember, right?
Yeah, correct.
You become losing all the information and it becomes a big problem within the team because you will have to either recreate the resource or you're not sure who created the resource. You have to go back and check cloud trial and all. So many problems will keep coming in within the team. Just to make sure all the infrastructure code is developed, maintained, and version controlled, uh, we started using Terraform uh, for that. So Terraform is a simplest way of writing your resource information, whatever you need to create in a format like HCL, HashiCorp configuration language, which is a simple text file. It is not an YAML or it is not a JSON. It is somewhat similar to JSON, but it is slightly different from JSON. And one of the prerequisites for logging into using Terraform is authentication credentials. Say we saw AWS CLI, right, already?
Correct.
Uh, how do we do authentication through AWS CLI?
First of all, we will create one IAM credentials in the AWS, and that credentials we will store in the Git bash, Git local Git bash, and whenever we are executing, we will use that credentials.
So we create IAM user, and this user has access
Privileges, yeah.
access key and secret key.
Secret key, yes.
Yeah, right. Access and secret.
Secret keys.
So apart from this, he should also have some permission to access the resources. Otherwise,
Resources.
you will not be able to, even though you have access key and secret key, you will not be able to do anything.
Create the resources.
The same set of credentials will be used for Terraform as well.
Okay.
Because Terraform also relies on some of these credentials. So Terraform either uses directly the configuration information which is stored in dot AWS folder, right? Where is dot AWS folder?
Yeah.
Dot AWS credentials and config folder. This is inside your home directory. Tilt slash dot AWS slash credentials tilt slash dot
AWS/config.
So this gets created when you run AWS configure command. So these are the two files which gets created. The same two files will be used by Terraform to connect to the AWS cloud and create resources. So some of the basic operations, if I want to tell you in the AWS CLI, I have already given at the high level. One is read operation, another one is write operation. The write operations include create, modify, delete, update, things like that. Whereas read operations include describe, list, and get. See, I'm not trying to deviate from Terraform, but you should also understand what are the different uh, um, operations that you can do using AWS CLI. there are only two classifications. One is write, another one is read.
Okay.
Describe requires no parameters because it is just describing whatever you want to see. AWS easy to describe instances will show you all the instances. AWS S3 LS it'll show you all the S3 buckets in that particular region. So everything is region based. When you configure your AWS CLI, you will be configuring the region as well in your configuration. So modify, delete list and all, I mean, as usual, not much. So in order to use access key and secret key, we use AWS configure command and then stores in plain text with the credentials. So AWS commands uses these credentials every time. If you make a change in the credentials, that will fail. Your AWS CLI command will fail. Ultimately, your Terraform code will also fail. Any questions on this?
No, no.
Okay. So some of these commands we already noticed, right? We
Yes.
are running AWS S3 LS describe instances and S3 API create bucket and all. Because once you configure your CLI to be working, you can run any of these commands similar to how you do from AWS console. It is pretty simple. See, probably if you go to console and then open console, log into console and then create one S3 bucket, right? It'll take minimum 2 to 3 minutes. But if you do the same thing from AWS CLI, hardly 10 seconds. Even if you want to write it and then run it also, it'll take more, it'll not take more than a minute. And you cannot save anything in the console, right? You cannot say that, I mean, I just directly want to go to S3. You cannot really do that. You have to probably copy that particular URL and then save it somewhere, and then you have to enter that URL so that you can go there. But ultimately, you have to log in every time. But with AWS CLI, you don't need to necessarily log in every time. You just use commands directly and create your resources. For deleting S3 bucket, you have options like AWS S3 RB, and which takes the S3 bucket name with the URL. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, so far no.
Okay. So even in HashiCorp configuration language HCL, okay, before that, you just need to understand what is IAC, infrastructure as code, right? What does it mean? Any idea? Can you explain a little?
Infrastructure as a code means we are managing the infrastructure with the help of code. We are writing the code to build an infrastructure. Correct me if I am
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly. That's very much correctly put. We are writing code, right? That
Yeah.
itself says we are going to use tool like Git for managing source different versions of source code. Is that understanding coming to you? Uh, so when you say code, right, that means you are coding your infrastructure. That means you have to maintain the version. So here comes the first tool that you are using. And in fact, in the company overall, almost every team will be using Git for source code management. Okay. Here, there are at least minimum 4 stages to create the resources. Init is all about initializing your environment to talk to AWS cloud, and then validate your source code. YAML, I mean the HCL format that you are writing, right?
Mm.
That you need to validate because whether it is as per this one or not. So init is to initialize AWS environment, AWS cloud or Azure cloud, whichever cloud that you are currently working on, that cloud you will be initializing. I mean, it will be installing the plugins, configuring different versions of other softwares required. Everything will be doing by running the init command. So every command will be prefixed with the Terraform. Terraform init, Terraform validate. Then plan is all about knowing the uh, I mean, it will let you know exactly what will be created if you use this particular code. It gives you a kind of sample. Um, it is not
It means for suppose we have write a code for creating the EC2 instance, it will plan like we are going to create EC2 instance that will display to us.
yeah. It is like a necessary information that you need to know before running the apply. So it will just give you an idea what is going to be created. If you are okay with everything, right, then you go and do a apply stage. You go and apply. Then say whenever your environment is not required, then you do a destroy. Basically, if you're done with your testing, if you're done with your all rounds of performance testing, load testing, stress testing, then you will go ahead and destroy the resource. Or maybe if somebody is not using it, that particular version is already released, we need to build another set of hardware, then you will destroy the resources.
This I have wondered this validation, how it will do the validation.
So you have a JSON YAML validator, right, online.
Okay, okay, okay,
Similar to that, they have a software which is written in Terraform itself.
okay,
That contains some basic structure that needs to be followed. That will validate that the code that you have written, that will give you the output, whether the format is correct or not. So here we'll be writing block of codes. That means every code is kind of within a curly brace. That will when we start looking into the code. HCL, it is similar to JSON. Some of the basic blocks, provider block, resource block, like that. Some of the basic blocks, provider block is having AWS as a resource. Resource block will have AWS EC2, AWS S3, like that. So it depends on what resource that you want to create. That resource name you have to keep it there.
that resource name it will come automatically like for suppose in the command line if we enter the some name and if we are using the tab it will fill the complete name, right?
Like that, you can do it if you install the plugin on the Visual Studio. Terraform
Mm-hmm.
install, you can easily create it. That is a way to do it. I'll probably try to give you the examples like that, but I am kind of to write everything uh, on the Git bash. Okay. Well, okay. So every Terraform file, every resource file, all the Terraform file be uh, with the .pf extension. Otherwise, Terraform will not be able to identify your resources, whatever you have written.
Okay.
And we have another important uh, characteristics of Terraform, that is, it will create a state file, which is nothing but a database of information that you are creating in the cloud. This information will be stored inside, for example, how many S3 buckets, how many EC2 instances,
Okay.
how many instances, how many subnets, like that. All the information will be stored inside. So this file will be storing all the information. Why is it required? Any idea?
For the logs.
Yeah, for the logs it's okay, but in order to destroy the resources
Okay. No.
or update the resources, destroy or update. your resources, you need to know what exactly is present at this point in your system. It is a declarative information. Whatever information you type, it is a declarative information. It's a declarative information. Declarative information, which is nothing but resources, whatever you need to create. That resources will be created in AWS cloud, and that information will be once a resource is created, that information will be stored in the state file.
Where
All
this
the
state file will be located in our local machine only, or
Yeah. So if you run from your local machine, it will be in a local machine. Otherwise, we can use S3. S3 to store the information. Almost all the companies will use S3 to store the Terraform state files. We'll initially go with the local state file, then we'll move the S3. We'll move to S3 bucket, and because I mean I want to everything. How do you do it locally first? So learn that one, and then we'll slowly move on to moving stateful to S3 bucket.
okay.
Provider is nothing but AWS Cloud, Azure Cloud, VMware Cloud, whatever it is. So these provisioners you will not be able to understand at this point. It is like how to log into a remote machine and run your command, how to run some local commands in the system from wherever you are running. So all those things will be seen in this particular provisioners. So you as an infrastructure engineer, see, usually there are two to three different roles that we play. Even though you say DevOps, you will be an infra engineer if you are working on the infrastructure creation, update, modification, or any other tools related stuff.
Okay.
So if you are working on application development, you will be application DevOps engineer. If you are working on monitoring solutions, and then if you're working for customer tickets and all, you will be a SRE engineer, system reliability engineer. If you're purely working on monitoring solutions, you will be still called a DevOps monitoring engineer, monitoring solution engineer. So there is no different word for monitoring. People call it as um, observability engineer, observability platform, uh, um, or they simply call you as a DevOps engineer. But you will be able to play different kind of roles depending on your company size, depending on your employee size. Sometimes I played all the roles starting from architecture, resource creation, and then application deployment, monitoring solution, and even SRE role. So in the current company, in the last company, I played a role of only infra engineer, infrastructure creation engineer using
Okay.
Terraform, GitLab CI. So here when you do all of these things, you are running it manually. See, whatever you do, you are doing it manually. There is no CI. It is all manual.
Okay.
You put this source code and everything in GitLab. GitLab, it becomes CI. So we'll be seeing how to manually run it first, and then using GitLab CI.
Understood.
Okay, for this we need to create the pipeline. Pipeline is all about running sequence of jobs and finally getting output, getting a final product. It could be related to application deployment. It could be related to infrastructure deployment. Here we'll end up creating infra, whereas in the application deployment, we'll end up deploying the services in the particular environment. The overall task that we are doing here, right? Overall task that we are doing, be it through CI or be it manual, right? What is it we are creating?
Infrastructure,
Yeah, infrastructure.
resources. Yeah.
Infrastructure. That is
Infra.
nothing but environment.
Correct.
Okay, infrastructure provisioning.
Mm.
It is called as environment. We call it as different environments. What are those environments? Dev, test,
Okay. Test stage, pre-prod, prod.
pre-prod, prod. PP, I'll write it, pre-prod, and then PR, prod. This is D. Development
Yep.
environment is the first one that we normally create. Nowadays, most of the developers are already equipped or enabled with DevOps skills. They will be able to create their infrastructure required simply, not through Terraform. But if we are available, if Terraform is properly implemented, then we will help them to create the infrastructure and hand it over to them. Okay. Any questions on this?
No, it's clear. As of
Clear.
now, it's clear.
So,
So here, oh, sorry, I have one. Here, this Terraform, any kind of versionings are there? Or, for suppose, um, uh, how I am saying, application versioning, or how to choose that one?
no, basically, here we are working only on the infrastructure creation. For example, EC2, ECS cluster, EKS
Mm,
cluster, or S3 bucket, or RDS instances, right?
correct.
So depending on what version that you want to install, as per the cloud, you can
Okay.
choose the version and then deploy it.
Okay.
Um, with respect to Terraform versions, you have options to choose different versions in Terraform also. That will be part of the provider section.
Okay.
So that and all, I mean, see, from company to company it varies.
Mm,
And from time to time it changes.
understood.
So, like I told you, there are 5 different stages at least that we need to go through to create resources and then destroy resources. This is create and then this is destroy.
Understood.
Basically, we will destroy only when it is not required, right?
Correct.
But this apply will create first, and then we'll say something new is coming.
Mm,
We'll update it. That also apply only.
mm,
And you say there is 2 3 new resources need to be added.
mm.
You create all those TF files, and then you make your state file updated. You will be applying the changes to Terraform. Sorry, AWS Cloud.
So I have
What?
one doubt, Shankar. Here, for suppose we need to upgrade the resources. For suppose we are using the um, what we call
Yeah.
EC2 instance is the low configuration. I need to upgrade to the higher end. That where we will amend in state file. I mean TF file or else TF state file.
No, TF state file is created from the resources which are
Res-
created by Terraform. We are
okay.
not we are not going to modify anything in the Terraform state file because that is basically for reference.
Okay. Okay.
We'll be doing all the changes in our local repository that will be on the .tf file.
TF file. Okay.
And moreover, when you make some changes with respect to the resources, if it is a minor version upgrade, it will update it. Otherwise, it will recreate it. Example, even if you want to update t2.micro to t3.micro, t3.medium, it will recreate the instance
Okay.
with the
Yeah.
configuration that you have. You are not supposed to make any changes after the resource is created in AWS Cloud. Say, for example, you create a machine, EC2 machine, and then you go to the machine and then you manually deploy something. In that case, if you make some changes in the Terraform code, that will be destroyed. That will be removed because you have done it manually. This is going to create a new instance of new EC2 instance with a different instance type. So at that time, it will remove the existing configuration. Hope I made it clear.
Yeah. Understood.
Okay, you can go through this. I have already shared some of the slides. I think all the slides I've shared. You can go through that. Um, See here how the provider block looks like. Uh, region access to information is important if you're running it manually. So
Okay.
I'm going back to there are different blocks provider, resource, variable block is something similar to that you create variable in some programming language, right? Data types like that,
Mm.
variable should be created. Data is all about fetching some information from AWS cloud and putting it in your Terraform state file. For example, you have a VPC that is already created and you want to know the VPC information. You just write a data and then pull that information and then keep it in your Terraform code. For that, it requires output is all about whatever resources that are created in AWS that will generate an output and then show it to you. So fundamentally, these are the different blocks that you will write in Terraform. Nothing much. It is not very complex, but at the same time, it is not very simple. Okay, every block starts with the fixed keyword. First keyword, left side, the first keyword is fixed keyword. It is not something which is modified, which can be modified. Provider means only provider you can use. Resource means only resource you can use. You cannot say resources. You cannot say my resource. So basically, this first argument is your Terraform related. Second one is cloud related. Say if you are working on AWS cloud, here provider is AWS, here AWS underscore VPC, AWS underscore EC2, AWS underscore S3. Like that, your second column should be written in such a way that uh, you are connecting to that particular cloud and resource. So your cloud name underscore your resource name. That is how your second column should look like. Third column is like your information. I mean, you can say my VPC, a dump VPC, whatever you want to say, you can say it. It is user defined. Hope I made it clear, Mahesh.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So the dot format, dot is all about calling that particular object. If you define a variable like VPC underscore cider, that you can call it with var dot cider, var dot VPC underscore cider. If you define a tag, you can call it with var dot tags. That will automatically go and check the other Terraform file and see whether you created a variable called tags. So we'll see in the first class itself, it is very difficult to understand. You will be able to understand in the next class. Okay, basically it's the same file, same slide. So for example, if you are defining a variable AMI ID, right? You have to say var dot AMI ID when you're creating an instance. If you go to instance, yeah, you will see that var dot instance ID. So here we are not we are not calling any EC2 instance. So basically, if you want to use this variable, var dot AMI ID should be your call, so that it will call this particular instance ID, sorry, AMI ID, whatever is defined for this particular region. This AMI will be used inside your code block, resource block. Okay, I have another 5 minutes to go. Hmm. So if you are creating a resource AWS underscore instance, my EC2 is your name, like that. So first one without any double quotes, second one is with the double quotes, third one again, whatever your name that you define, that is with the double quotes. So this particular format you should be very familiar after probably writing it for 2 to 3 days. When you're calling the variable, when you're calling any object that is already defined, that should not have any double quotes or single quotes. That should be your variable name. So it should be without double quotes or single quotes. Okay. Here I'm talking about a GitLab CI, so I think we can skip this because I want you to initially go through the manual
Manual.
procedure and then do it automated way.
Yes.
Um, any questions you have?
Let me try these simple codes, and then if I have any, if I'm stuck in anywhere, I will ping you.
Sure. I'll stop the recording.